Our first guest on the show today, we welcome from the Jackson Interfaith Shelter, CEO Steve Castle and Director of Shelter Services, Adelie Schwartz. Hi guys.
Hi.
Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to you for the first time, Adelie.
Thank you. Thank
How long
you.
have you been at the Interfaith Shelter?
I've been there, it was 2 years in May, so just a little over 2 years now.
Great to have you both. You knew each other before you worked together at the shelter.
We did. So when I used to work at the college, my first role there, I was a resident director with student development. So I was the RA for her husband, who was her boyfriend at the time. And so Allie and I overlapped a little bit. She was in the School of Education and worked in that office, and all the faculty talked really highly of her. And so, I don't know, 15 years later or so, we got to start working together.
Yeah.
Awesome. You guys have been busy on a number of things. The shelter looks great. You've made some really nice improvements. The entry and just the whole place is looking pretty sharp.
Thank you, Bart.
And there's more you've got on the drawing board.
We do, yeah. So always working on stuff, but thankfully most of it is wrapped up. And really the last couple of years, we just want someone that comes in, you know, we always have an expectation, whether you're going to a restaurant or McDonald's or Walmart or whatever, to feel like you're welcomed when you go. I mean, they actually have greeters at the stores that say welcome. So if you think of coming out of a really traumatic experience like homelessness or coming in with your kids and you're fleeing violence, you know, you all the more want to have where somebody comes in and there's somebody to greet them, they feel welcomed and just a safe space to be in. So we wanted the facilities to really communicate that to people. So we're pretty well there. And we actually just in the entryway, as about 2 days ago, finished up a project with Ellis Sharp Museum on a history display cabinet. So we're almost 50 years old. Next year we'll turn 50 years old at the shelter. 50 years old. Yep, so actually there's a picture right there. That's Chris Shimalewski standing next to it. His mother was the founder of the shelter, Bev Gargis, and she passed away about 3 or 4 years ago. She was, I believe, in her late 80s. And Chris not only kind of grew up running around the shelter as a 6 or 7 year old when it first started on the east side of town. Our current location is actually the second location. But then he was actually the manager at the shelter for 15 or 20 years, probably in his 20s through 40s or something like that. So shot him a message when he had that done and said, hey, come and see some of the history and read some of the stories about your mom. So that was actually just yesterday that he swung by to see the finished case and just about got a little teary-eyed. So it was really neat.
That's really cool because Bev, I remember, did an incredible job, not just starting the shelter, but growing it to what it's become.
Yep.
And I think when you look at this community and some of the housing and shelter projects that have been done, they've been done, I think, entirely started by women in Jackson.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's awesome. So, Chris, you should be very proud. And now the whole place knows. Welcome people, and you do want them to feel welcome. It's not a place people are ever thinking they are going to end up.
Right.
Yep.
It's a hard step for some people to take. How is someone that's never had to take advantage of the services of the shelter? What's the process?
Yeah, so we get calls about that quite often. Someone will call seeking shelter and they'll say, I haven't stayed there before. What is it that I need to do? I just talked to someone on the phone about that the other day. And we have a screening process that we go through where we verify, are you homeless? What services are you going to need? And then they will come for their intake. And the first thing that they'll do is actually show them around the shelter, because this is your temporary home. You should know what you're coming into. Once they've had the tour, they have a chance to shower, clean up, and then there's an intake process that they go through with one of our service coordinators. We have a really, really great team who want to be sensitive to the fact that someone walking in the door is walking through trauma at that time. So how can we make sure that we're being welcoming, but also not so enthusiastic? It seems like this is an exciting thing to do. Like, no, it's actually kind of scary when you're rooming with, up to 76 strangers within a building. But they have an intake process they go to, and we do orientation twice a week that was actually built from clients sharing, when I first got to the shelter, I wish I would have known, insert the blank. They get a lot of information during their intake, but they might not realize they have free membership to the YMCA while they're there. And that we have Lifeways come to do screenings once a week. So I digressed a little bit, but in that conversation with someone who called, she was nervous about, if I'm going to come here and I'm bringing my child, I would really rather not come. But as I'm explaining, this is what you'd be walking into, she felt more comfortable about potentially coming for a tour to see where her temporary home would be.
Well, and it's not like they're choosing between that or the Marriott.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have so many definitions of homeless
Right.
now, don't we?
Right.
And some communities are using different terms like unhoused. What is our situation in this community, Steve?
Yeah, so for us, we're part of the continuum of care, which is basically a group that meets once a month and works within HUD's definition, you know, which is basically you're unsheltered or you're in a house or a place not suitable for people to live in, like a garage or a shed. But beyond that, you know, so that's kind of the definition. So for some, it's expanding. If you're doubled up, if you're staying in your aunt's house, but you'd maybe rather not be there, and then that's homeless. So it makes it kind of muddy, because if you're trying to directly help somebody that's literally living under the bridge, but then the definition's a lot broader, it sometimes can make it confusing for people. But we work within the definition of being an emergency shelter. And if there's an actual home for you to be in, we're saying that's probably going to be the best fit. And then we kind of let them know, here's all the services in the community to help you move forward if other permanent housing is what you're hoping for.
I know we've talked about this before, but it does come up. People wonder, we see people who appear to be homeless on the street with shopping carts and all their belongings with them. Maybe we see them under the bridge.
Yep.
There are people that are homeless that are choosing to live on the street.
Yeah, whether it's intentional choice or because of addictions or other things, but yeah, there are some that it kind of becomes a lifestyle, and even within the definition. So, you know, it's been called homeless, and now some are saying houseless, but they're saying because a house is a physical thing, but a home is your community. So can you technically not be homeless if you're outside, but you're in your community and that's your home? And so, you know, it gets very broad like that. But yeah, I mean, there's in people that aren't kind of within this world, they'll say, well, I would never do that, or why would anybody do that? But there's a lot of differences with people, and also there's some freedom that sometimes comes. I mean, I think navigating the modern world can be stressful and tricky and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes you get in a groove and you find a community of people, and you in some ways thrive in a pretty unconventional way.
Yeah, and we've talked about this too. I've talked to people that say, well, I don't want to live at the shelter, they have rules. Or, you know, I'm not homeless, I do get picked up every day on the corner and they take me home. They appear homeless, but they're not. So it's confusing to a community what really is going on.
Yeah, one thing I appreciate about the shelter, and like I said, it's been there over 50 years, so a lot of the stuff, it's not something I started, but we've always done community meals as far back as I know. So whether or not you're homeless, 3 meals a day, no questions asked, anybody
You can just come in just for the food.
Yep, so that's where if somebody really either is choosing or for whatever reason they can't handle congregate setting and you know, they're living in their car or choosing that, no matter what, you can get in three meals a day, 365 days a year, and I think that meets another niche within our community as well, which I think is important.
Yeah, so that's obviously going hungry is a different issue, but it's not mutually exclusive.
Right.
What about this annual block party? I think we're on year 3.
Third annual. You want to hit on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, so we could not exist without partnerships that we have with our community organizations, with the volunteers that come in. So our block party is a thank you to Jackson. And there's going to be free food. My place is coming out to grill hot dogs for us. I know we have some ice cream that's going to be there as well.
Amanati's Frosty Boy.
Oh, so good. We're actually going to be doing tours, and Cheryl, who is our director of operations, who's worked at the shelter for well over 20 years, she is really the authority on so much when it comes to the shelter and its history. So she'll be doing some guided tours. We have the Jackson Police Department that comes out to let kids play with the lights and hit the sirens, and they take photos and do pictures. Something new this year, we're actually going to have reptiles there. So there's a gal who volunteers at the shelter named Belinda, and she's going to be bringing her snakes and a few other things so that if people want to play with them, that'll be something new. Gwen's Greens is going to be there to do flower crowns, and then of course the foam pit and the inflatables. It's really just one big party, and anybody can come and hang out between 11 and 2, and that's next Saturday.
It seems like the last couple of years, the neighbors, it's like a neighborhood. Well, it's called a block party, so I guess it's
Yeah,
that's
and really
the definition.
our intentionality with building that was when kind of the COVID stuff was still going on, and the community was so instrumental in kind of navigating out a lot of that, and we've had just amazing volunteers. We have about 270 people, individuals, every single month that come and serve at the shelter, so just a huge blessing. And so really it was, like Natalie said, a thank you to the community. We intentionally didn't make it a fundraiser. We want people to just come. People that maybe have only driven by to go to Hinckley's to say, hey, stop for a second and see what the investment you're doing is making. But also it's neat because you don't know the people that are there enjoying the block party. Is it somebody staying at the shelter? Is it somebody that's a volunteer? Is it somebody that lives 3 blocks up the road? Is it a donor? Is it a board member? It's just people legitimately coming together and having a nice time together in community, and there's no division or barrier. And
That's
so
nice.
so we try to foster that, and it's fun getting to the 3rd year and seeing it continue to grow.
I would imagine, Natalie, there are people, they're embarrassed, they're in a situation, they have to be at the shelter.
Yeah, that does tend to be something that we find. Folks will come in and they're kind of hard on themselves. Like I've hit rock bottom and I've landed in a place that I never wanted to be. But during orientation and just in individual conversations, I try to encourage them to see you're in a place where you're surrounded by resources. This is actually the best place that you can be right now for the season that you're in. And I've heard from probably 3 people over the course of the last month or so say, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Not that they wanted to be homeless, but that they landed in a place that cares about them, where they've got Lifeway's coming to do screenings, Community Action Agency, fun things that we do as well, and they actually find like purpose in who they are so that they can rise from where they are. And a lot of them come back to keep volunteering, but it takes some time to go from feeling that embarrassment and being hard on themselves to seeing themselves as we hope that they'll see themselves as being capable and worthwhile and not a failure, and that they're surrounded by people who care and they're not here to judge them.
A lot of volunteers, a lot of volunteer opportunities. I know food serving, that's one of the things. What else can people help with?
Yeah. So we've tried to streamline a lot. So our website tells a lot of things, interfaithshelter.com, but some of the consistent ones, especially if people have a little more time to devote, helping out with the front desk sometimes, or someone like if somebody calls in. Sometimes people come to help with childcare, which can really help some of the families that maybe just need an hour to work on this other thing, but they've got 4 kids that they always have to be with because they're in a shelter setting. Organizing different things inside or out. Fun nights. We'll have groups that come in and just do bingo games and just something fun for people to do. And so there's really, if somebody has an idea for something, there's probably a way to plug them in, because we serve about 700 people a year that actually stay at the shelter. So as many ideas as there are, there's probably someone that's going to appreciate and benefit from that type of service.
How about donations? I'm sure money is appreciated. I believe restaurants and caterers have been a big help to the shelter over the years.
Yeah, and this is the season with weddings and open houses, and so if people have leftovers from some of those things, especially the catered events, as long as it's properly stored or comes to us right away, that's typically things that we can use. We have the walk-in freezer and fridge, and so we'll kind of put that in the queue and use that up. And so it's kind of fun, stop by for lunch, because you never know what you're going to get. It's sometimes it's prime rib from Gene Davis, other times it's a ham sandwich. So it's a mystery lunch, but it's always good.
So we've got the block party coming up next weekend, not this week, but next
Saturday the 5th at 11. Yep.
Anything else people need to know?
I was only going to mention for donations, we also have an Amazon wish list that we keep updated on our website. So food is always needed, but sometimes there's just various things that'll come up, and so they can go straight on, shop, have it shipped straight to the shelter, or if they just want to look at the list, see what we need, and they go buy it somewhere themselves and then bring it in, that's fine too.
Yeah. And I guess, last thing I would say, thank you for that. Becca would have told me I should have mentioned that. For anyone in the community, I think a lot of times with homelessness, it can get so emotion driven because you're physically seeing someone that's struggling or appears to be struggling, and especially right now it's summer, but when it gets to winter time, it's a whole nother level of, because it's like this person, if what they're saying is true, they could freeze and die. And so I encourage everybody, please give us a call. Like if you're hearing a story or somebody's sharing things with you, or you're not sure and they're saying they can't come, or please give us a call. Or if they're saying there's no available beds, give us a call, because sometimes it's accurate, sometimes that's not accurate. And if there are no beds, then we would love to connect them with other resources that maybe can get that person help. And so the more we partner as a community, and the first thing they hear, if they say, I'm going to go to the source real quick and ask that question, or if somebody's never come and seen the place, I would invite anybody, come through. We'd love to give a quick tour, because it's the whole community that helps people. So the more people get on the same page and work together, the more we can really help people.
Block party, great opportunity to check the place out.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for helping our community and our neighbors. From the Jackson Interfaith Shelter, CEO Steve Castle and Director of Shelter Services, Adelie Schwartz.